full name, which is kind of hilarious, and all of us kind of didn't really like it at the time because it sounds made up, was Environomical Pathways to Sustainable Energy Systems.
Wow, there's got to be an acronym in there.
No, the name of the program was Select, which has no relation and was not an acronym for anything.
Perfect.
It's like a legacy name. So we had this, none of us actually put, to be honest, that degree name on our resumes.
Right.
I usually say I did sustainable energy engineering because I think,
Relatable.
a lot of people would probably, blink hearing environmental pathways, which makes sense, right? It's a curriculum focused on the environment and economics, right? Environomics
Got it.
to sustainable energy systems, right? So how do we, in a cost-effective and environmentally oriented way, build out our energy infrastructure? So it wasn't just the classic mentality of focusing on just engineering aspects. It was focusing on economic viability, which is super important when kind of looking towards the future of sustainability and renewable energy, right? It's not a matter of
Yeah.
like, oh, it'd be cool if all of it was we just put wind turbines everywhere, right? It's like, well, does that make sense or not? Right? Like
Yeah, so Environomics does not mention engineering. How much was that a prerequisite and how was that covered?
I mean, the coursework itself was reasonably technical. Like you had to have an engineering background more or less to go
Okay.
into it. So yeah, everyone had an engineering background because we did this general ed stuff, which was relatively easy, but there are a few courses that got pretty heavy with thermo in particular. So power systems, right? It was designing, doing calculations, and thermo balances on power
Energy
plants
generation,
for
so
sure.
right, thermodynamics to
Yeah,
supplement that. And your background was chemical engineering, which would
yeah,
probably come into play as
yeah.
well.
Which helped a reasonable amount. Gave me that thermo and the systems perspective.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. So, environmental pathways for sustainable energy systems.
Yeah,
So, the energy systems is the engineering part. Environomics is kind of how you position it.
right. Is the perspective, and it was also a very so the goal, the grand scheme of this program was to encourage entrepreneurship. So that was
Oh,
part of the whole. I keep realizing I'm missing really important things about this. I should have organized my thoughts
it
better.
sounds like a complicated program. That's
Um,
tough to explain quickly.
yeah, so I mean,
Um,
the whole one of the big outputs that the EU wanted, right? One of their encouragements, they weren't just putting money into these programs, not expecting anything out of it. What they wanted is people to have a place to really like constructively think about things, and then to have support to come up with startups, right? That's going to help put them at the forefront of these respective industries. So there was a heavy focus on business acumen. We did a week long seminar as part of the program at Azade Business School in outside of Barcelona. I think it's in Sant
okay.
Cugat or something, which was really like a boot camp, right, on basic business principles, marketing, accounting, kind of everything across the board. And we did a lot of focus where part of one of our projects was consulting local startups on their product, their business idea, writing like business plans and doing business justification assessments and write-ups. So that was a heavy part of the program on top of all the base coursework.
And you said the entrepreneurial portion is because not people were backing the program or startups were backing the program, but more because the focus on new future technologies kind of aren't here yet. So it's more looking into the future and
Right.
building a business case for it. Is that right?
Yeah, they were kind of using the program, and they actually had a formal system out of it, but as an incubator.
Okay,
So,
there you go.
they're taking all these people from around the world that all cared about these specific issues, all, like relatively like competent, good people, um, and then giving us the tools to build these things out and kind of like, take risks on big ideas to address these really complicated um, challenges that no one to date has
Yeah.
really figured out, right?
global issues. Yeah, no, that
Global,
takes
yeah,
some
huge,
brain
like, grand
power
challenges,
to
right?
figure out.
We learn about the grand challenges in engineering, right? And
Yeah.
it's that, right? How do we figure that out, and how do we actually take steps towards it? And there's been a lot of great outputs, from some of my classmates, which has been cool to see.
Yeah, no, that's a good group. Yeah, I got to visit briefly and met a couple people, and seemed like a bunch of future rock stars.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll be on the podcast.
Maybe with the economics piece. So I know at NC State we were required to take an economics. I think one economics class. Was there? Did you have a business background or a finance background or any classes in school? And was you playing catch up a little?
So I did. My minor was in business administration. So I
Okay,
did
that's what I
chemical
thought.
engineering and then minored in German and business administration. Such a kind of a random duo, which is
Nice.
interesting that you mentioned that, because I initially was thinking, because I had coming in with all the AP credits, right? I kind of had room to pick up something else, and so the options I had settled on were either um, a bachelor of arts in chemistry, because it basically I
Mm,
was meeting most of the requirements through chemical engineering. So I was like, why not just pick up a double major? Wasn't going to take any extra time, even though it was just a BA, or a minor in business administration. And I remember talking to, this was even the chemistry department guidance counselor, and I mentioned this, and he
mm.
said, "quote like hell yeah, do business." Like, there's no reason to do chemistry, like, in addition to chemical engineering. Like, definitely do business. That'll look way better. I was like, okay, sold.
Yeah,
So I had been through some of that coursework, and I think, like, you and I talk about all the time. Like, I think engineers are generally financially minded. Just, we're numbers people typically. I'm
sure.
sure 80% of the people listening that care about engineering probably have some budget spreadsheet set up where they track all their personal finances, right?
Some macros, sure.
One of the concepts I really enjoyed learning about, and I actually sat in, like, shadowed a few courses, were environmental economics. And the whole concept, a lot of this stuff was pretty eye opening to me around, like, what an external cost is, externalities. Um, and that's basically the concept of when you go to buy a gallon of gas, you're paying for just the gas, but what about the emissions from the gas? What about the pollutants from combustion of the gas? All that cost that gets passed on to everyone else, and then that burden gets put on, like, society generally. It goes on our health system, it goes on our productivity, it goes on everything, and no one's paying for it, right, except us in the long run. So the concept of external cost analysis is to figure out what should the price of a gallon of gas be, if we're factoring in all of that, to make sure it's priced properly, to incentivize people to buy less, or just to include it in the natural function of how the economy works. Same with forest, right? When we price wood, we're not including the value of, like, carbon sequestration in wood, right? Like, what's the real value of forest protecting them? And that's become a global, like, pretty current hot topic or talking point, right?